All right, are we ready? I hope everybody's here. Welcome, Mayhem Makers. I am Mindy with Quilting Mayhem. We are on to another Summer Sampler 2022 tutorial. This week is week 7, the Mosaic block. The struggle is real. It's been a tough couple days for me trying to get this tutorial done for you guys, so please bear with me. I've recorded this multiple times with a lot of technology issues. I'm not the most savvy, so we're going to get through this, I promise. If you've done week 6, the variable star, a lot of the pieces are all the same. So you're doing the flying geese, you're doing, see, my brain's already crashing. The square and the square with the fussy cutting. We're just adding some half square triangles and changing the layout. So it's not going to be a star layout. It's going to be kind of what I would call just that square and a square that keeps going. So it's going to create some rings around the squares, which I think is really pretty. Thankfully, because I've recorded this so many times, I have a lot of pieces and parts already put together. Unfortunately, though, my fussy cutting tutorial piece, it's getting a little small. So a little limited, but we're still going to get you that tutorial. I did show you how to do this last week, so you may already know it. If you're confident from last week, or just in your skills as it is, feel free, fast forward, go watch the layout towards the end of how to put it together, and skip all this mayhem that may occur in between, because we're just going to make it to the end. All right, so let's start with fussy cutting. All right, let's see if I can adjust this camera. All right, we got this. So I love this 6.5-inch creative grid square. It's one of the staples in my sewing room. It's got a bullseye in the middle. It's got nice grippy texture around it and in between. So I love that it works perfectly for this because I can center that bullseye over the middle of my design. Now keep in mind, you're going to lose these outer corners because you're doing the square and the square. So you're going to be adding these guys that are going to cut off the corners. So don't try to get things in the outer corners because you're going to lose them. Otherwise, if you're super beginner and not confident, you can always mark lines, as I showed you in the past, so you can get an idea. And this is what's called like a chalkener. It has powder chalk in it and a metal wheel. I like it for darker fabrics because it shows up better than, say, my friction pen. And so I can look at that square and go, is that what I want? Is he where I want? Maybe I want something else in there, but today we're working with what we got. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. And because I'm down to the end, I'm just going to cut pieces off. And I'm just trimming so I have 2 straight edges there, and then we'll flip it around and trim the rest. Okay, so lining up straight edge here and here, chopping off there and there. All right, so there's that guy. And then what we're going to do is take our squares and start adding them on. All right, so a couple of ways to do it. You can either draw a diagonal line with like a chalk marker, which is what I've done here. You can try your friction pen. It's not as easy to see, but doable. You can do where you can just kind of finger press it. So fold your square in half on the diagonal, do some finger pressing, and that will show you your crease. And we're just sewing on these lines that we're creating. Or what's kind of nice, if you want to just trim before sewing, hopefully you can see this, the simple folded corners ruler is what this is called. This is the mini one, so there's a bigger guy. What you do, so lining up that square on that corner, taking this ruler, and then lining up edge here on the block, edge there on the block. The diagonal is lined up on the corners of this dark purple square, and then it is giving you that added 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to take that away and So it's giving me the seam allowance. And then we'll take it to the machine and sew. I'll come right back and show you. All right. So there we go. That's one corner down. Trim that little thread off. And then we'll press it. What I like to do is 2 sides at once. So I'm actually going to come over here and do this other side first before pressing. Now, you can't do side to side. If you tried to do this, because of the overlap, it doesn't work. You get a weird pinch in the middle. So don't go like right to left. You have to go across. All right. So take it to the machine. And this is what you're going to get. Look, magic. Isn't that fun? This is the best part about having to do this tutorial multiple times. So you're going to press it. I press my seams open. And then we're just going to add the other 2 corners. So do that for you guys. This is a very handy ruler. I love this. And I can even, we'll see how well this works. Cut both at once. I use this ruler also a lot for Elizabeth Hartman patterns. She does those fun little critters. I did her social shark one for my twin grandsons. It's just makes things a lot easier where you're not drawing a bunch of lines, trying to save some time. All right. So we'll come back. Get you guys here. Not down there. So just sew. Try to get the cutter to work. One of the things when I upgraded machines, I didn't realize how much I would love having a thread cutter that wasn't manual. I had the good old Bernina 440 I've had it 14 years. But I had it for 9 or 10 years before I finally became a dealer. And of course, took a pretty new machine home and was like, okay, I see you, thread cutter. You know, not a half to have, but oh my goodness, it's amazing. So just gonna give this a little starch on the seams and press it open, and we'll show you what it looks like. So not a lot of new techniques this week. I mean, really, we're just adding the half square triangle, which is not anything new and fancy. But I like that the layout changes somewhat dramatically with some fairly simple blocks. All right, so square and a square. That's how it looks. All right, so that's your center. Then half square triangles. Love them. They're easy. They're super popular these days. I swear, everything I see is a half square triangle. So get your friction pen, draw your line. I usually use whatever's the lightest of the 2 fabrics. Draw on the wrong side of the fabric, just straight through. Put them right sides together, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch from either side of that line. And I'm going to show you a trick in a minute. So let's move you down here. See how this goes. So I also like being what I call efficient. So I don't like cutting thread if I don't have to. And because I have the freehand system, I can raise my foot, pull a little bit on the thread in the block, turn it around, and come back down and sew down the other side. So that's my neat trick for the week. How's that? So there we have 1/4 inch on either side. You cut it apart, and you end up with these guys, and then you go press them, and you end up with like this. All right, you are going to need to trim them. Please, for the love of everything quilty, trim. These are not the size that you need. You need to trim them down for your accuracy. So We'll be nice. We'll give you a trimming tutorial. Even though I know you've seen it before, I'm sure. Unless you're brand new. If you just found this video and you're brand new, welcome to the mayhem. Hopefully you're enjoying it. All right, so diagonal line of my little, this is just my 4.5 creative grid. It's going to go down the center here, and I'm trimming to 3.5. So I'm making sure that there is fabric at the edge at 3.5. There's fabric on this outer edge that all needs to be trimmed. All right, I'm just doing 2 sides. And then now that this side is clean, you can line it straight up on that 3.5. Keep your diagonal down the middle, and then trim the other 2. All right. So you're going to trim those babies up. And they're going to get attached to the flying geese. So we're going to move on to flying geese. So those guys. So grab your rectangle, make some room, draw diagonal lines on the wrong side of the light color fabric, and then make sure you're lining them up so that the one end of the diagonal of the square is in the middle and it goes to an outer edge. Now, you're going to sew on that line. You could use that simple folded corners here too. You could just come over here and just trim it right out the gate and then take it to the machine and sew it. So let's try that. All right. I'm going to apologize. I know I got you guys moving all over the place. But staring at a mat's not a lot of fun. Okay. So that's where we're at with that guy. You're going to press it, and it's going to look like this. I am enjoying that I have all these pieces. It makes this video a little faster for you guys, a little less boring. So then we're going to add this guy to the other side. And make sure that diagonal goes from the top here to that outer point. I'm going to sew. Trim and press. Okay? So what's going to happen is then you're going to start putting all your pieces together because that's where you're at. You're going to have flying geese once you press it. Looks like that, right? So you're going to make sure that you take your half square triangles, lay them with your flying geese like this. Now, this is important. Lay all your pieces and parts out on a mat if that's easier for you, especially if you're new. But making sure these 2 fabrics are creating a stripe, because potentially you're going to want to put your flying geese the other way to make like a star, right? Like last week, the variable star had the geese where you had little star points. And we're not doing that this week. We're turning it around so that it's making now another ring around that square in the square. So make sure that this row, as you put these half square triangles with the purple sticking outward, and the pink is going to make a stripe around the darker purple. Okay, so sew them, just 1/4 inch seam, just match, make sure the beginning and the end match, sew them together. All right, so you're making 2 because one's going on the top, one's going on the bottom. And then your square in the square, you're just going to attach your flying geese here with the dark side to these dark pieces. So notice it's starting to make kind of this chevron look. This is what you want because this is what's going to get you that full ring around your square in the square. All right. So once you do those, press your seams. If you don't like pressing seams open like me, just press to the dark side or one way or the other. Just stay consistent. Okay. So if you wanted to press one direction, let's say you press outward because of these seams, you will need to make sure that then these, if this is outward, that these seams are inward. And that will reduce your bulk. Otherwise, press them open. Then you don't have to worry about it. Match your seams. Take these guys. Pin. Don't go rogue on me now. Add your pins. Because it's important that these parts match up. And if you're super new, please even pin the beginning and the end. So pin matching these corners because you don't want blocks that dip and curl on you. You get wavy blocks, wavy quilts, wavy everything. And then you come and you ask, you go, why? Why does it do it? Well, because you didn't make sure that these 2 points and these 2 points match so that the outer edges of your block stay straight. Okay, so that's the important piece. And then we're just going to sew. Of course, if you've been quilting a while, you don't worry about that quite as much. You know how to line them up. Make sure you stop before you get to the pins. Don't run those babies over. Keep all your edges straight and just keep going. And then I generally will put both the top and bottom on. So here's what, so far how we're looking. Okay, so I'm going to put the bottom one on, pin all of it before I press it. And then in that final press, I do starch at the very end too. So I like my blocks to stay nice and crisp as they're being assembled into the final quilt. And then once you wash it, all of that comes out. So you don't have to worry about your quilt being like crunchy, super stiff. It will all come out. Don't worry. All right, so 1/4 inch seam. That's the general rule with quilting. It's always a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, straighten the edges. Maybe. I'm not sure how much you can see. So I'm just making sure these edges stay straight so that I don't get, once again, waves and all that good stuff. Making sure I stop, pull that pin, making sure this corner matches. And so I'm going to put a finger here to keep it all nice and lined up. All right, cut that. Remove the block. Take it to pressing. All right. So I give it just a little spray for the seam. Press it open. It's a nice thing of having acrylic nails is they act as a kind of seam opener. There's pressing tools. There's all kinds of stuff. So you can use a stiletto or something if you need help opening up those seams and not getting your fingers burnt. All kinds of fun stuff. My sport horror nail salon, they always wonder like how I wear out the tips of my nails so quickly. It's because I'm using them as pressing tools. And they're getting steam on them constantly. All right, making sure I don't flip up any edges. And then at the end, I flip it over. I just give it a good spray. I love this thing. It gives me such a good even mist. And it's just best press, flatter, and water. Equal parts. Generally, I use an unscented best press. And my flatter for this week is still, I kind of love the pineapple. So Pineapple Grove. And best press, which we do refills in the store. So we just always have it in bulk because we all love using it so much. All right, there's your mosaic block. All right, and see, it's very pretty. It's got a different layout than the star, but using mostly the same pieces. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed. Have a fabulous week. We will see you next Friday. Keep on stitching.